Happy New Year, guys. If you're noticing anything different about my look, yes, I nared my knuckles. So, as the new year kicks off, I want to tell you about my experience watching Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, you may remember a few years back, actually, it's probably been a lot longer than that, Conan O'Brien was making fun of spring break in Wichita, saying, "What could you possibly do?" mentioning the world's largest IMAX theater. This isn't entirely true. It's the world's largest digital IMAX theater. That doesn't mean large format film, but projected digitally, not necessarily the actual film IMAX. I think everybody at this point is probably actually watching digital IMAX, especially if it's going to be in 3D. And this is the theater, previously called the Warren, now kind of called that still, purchased by Regal, where I watched the movie. Now, the experience itself, I have some issues with. When you go into this rather large dome-shaped box, you're sitting along the wall. It's like you're part of the wall and you're kind of like put up in along the edge here, and you are gazing up and across and even down a little ways. So if anyone in front of you chooses to wear a hat, as a guy in front of me did, the bill itself is going to get in your vision as you look down. So that was rude as all hell. Eventually, I think maybe this guy nodded off or something because I didn't notice it after an hour. Or maybe he turned his head sideways. I don't know. But yeah, not really ideal. Especially when this movie, by the way, is making some dough. These were like $17 tickets for a matinee 2 weeks after the movie came out. And it was sold out. So I know people are going to go see this. I have some issues with the way the 3D was handled. This was by far the best looking 3D experience I've seen in a theater. It's been a long time since I've watched a 3D movie in a theater, probably 10 years. I think that there are some hang-ups though. James Cameron went with the traditional 24 frames per second movie speed. I think it's actually 23.98 if you want to get super technical for some of the movie, but it's variable rate. Oh yeah, we want to do the high, what are they calling this? Like high speed film, where they kick it up to 48 frames per second for the action shots. You'll notice the flying has that odd soap opera effect of the smoothed motion. You always want to turn that off on your TV. You get like 120 hertz TV, whatever, you always turn off the motion smoothing, and all the action in Avatar: The Way of Water looks like motion smoothed effects. And I can't be the only person who is put off by this. Now, my folks who I went with, because it was my birthday present, whatever, they didn't seem to mind this so much. They never noticed this motion smoothing on their fancy TV. But it always bothers me, and it's something I want to turn off. And every time it switched around, it took me out of the film. When characters are standing around, everything looked fine. When action started up, it looked like a video game. There were perfectly, reasonably good, well-rendered effects that looked like miniature or video game. The maglev derailment you see in the trailer, like that looked like a video game. Anything flying, any of the ships landing, any of that, it didn't look particularly real to me because of this jarring motion effect. As the story of the film goes, we're picking up years later. Jake Sully and his family are expanding. Natiri's his wife. They're, I guess, basically tribal king and queen at this point. All's looking okay for them, but we've come up with some rather half-assed, isn't that coincidental moments here. Grace, remember Sigourney Weaver's character? She died in the previous film. Oh, but her avatar is pregnant and gave birth in death? Took a baby to term. Oh, but Vaughn, it's Avatar. They've got this weird relationship with nature. I mean, I'm not sure if that return makes any less sense than Miles Quaritch, Colonel Bad Guy from the previous movie, returning as an avatar. We come up with a concocted, oh yeah, just in case you die in this final battle, I'm here to give you a brief of what's going on. You hate this guy Jake Sully, and we're clone your body on Earth as an avatar, and you're coming back. Okay, so this is even more ideal. These guys don't have to go asleep and then become human again or atrophy any of this. So his crew is now Na'vi avatars. You made the bad guys into like super soldiers of sorts. But this doesn't mean everybody gets to return. Michelle Rodriguez, one of my favorite characters from the previous film, she doesn't get to come back. No, because she doesn't have, big business backing her. She was a turncoat. So Jake and Neytiri's family is growing. They have 2 sons, of which names I never got or could tell apart, so that was a problem. They have a younger daughter, and they have the adopted daughter of Grace, Kiri, who, those two, they have a unique enough look and sound I can identify when they're on screen, so I kept up with them. And then there's Spider, a human boy who is always in a loincloth and running and jumping around barefoot. They could never get him some Jordans. We let the cat out of the bag early that his dad was Colonel Quaritch. Again, another reach here. We never heard any mention of him having a son on Pandora or who the mom could have been. Oh, well, you can't send... All the humans went back except for a couple. They went back to Earth. Yeah, you get off our planet. But you can't send a kid into hyperdrive sleep, whatever. Okay, so where's his mom? You're telling me his mom didn't want to stick around? Yeah, hey, screw you, I'm leaving the boy, whatever. For having as much time as we could have put into this, it's pretty sloppy. Well, Quaritch, the humans are coming back not just to mine that unobtainium. No, they're here to settle Pandora now, a planet in which they can't breathe. This forces Jake and Neytiri to uproot their family from the forest to the islands, and we get this more of a Maori, New Zealand vibe. They get largely accepted, but their kids have to go through the typical teen angst bullying thing. There's a little bit of, oh, you're looking at my sister, well, I'm going to be rough on you. The youngest son ends up doing a Free Willy bit where there is a creature that is very much a whale. Oh, but it looks a little bit different, Vaughn, and they have communication capabilities because of the Na'vi, and that's how they operate. It's amazing enough that James Cameron was able to get people invested in this relationship with weird 12-foot tall blue aliens, various creatures underwater that look kind of like what we have, but not quite. And it largely works on this level, and I felt connected to the film. It's 3.5 hours? It's probably 4 hours with the damn trailers. And I was never wanting to look at my watch or felt bored. I liked the Batman, but boy did that feel longer. It really did. What do you know? We also have the humans around. They want some of this whale ambergrease, essentially. I don't even remember what they called this, but it was the new unobtainium. It just... $80 million for like a jar, like what mutated the Ninja Turtles. It's gonna have to go for a lot more than that given the effort that was put forward to get this stuff. Yeah, but you have these like crab robots. I'm not sure they needed to look like crabs, but the underwater battles, everything looked really great and polished. And this is what happens when you don't have an MCU movie that is shelled out like cookie cutter factory assembly line and all the effects are being done before you can even hire a director. This is what attention to detail gets you. Sure, the movie would be less jarring if you watch this at home on Disney Plus when it gets there on that day, but maybe you're not really getting the experience. And I think Martin Scorsese may be wrong here. It's not the MCU movies that are a roller coaster, an event you go to. That's a cult. That's a religion people are worshiping at the theater. Avatar: The Way of Water is your gimmicky, impressionable, you have to see it on the big screen in order to get the effect. You can't get that 3D, you can't get the IMAX 3D at home, so you have to do it our way. Is the film going to feel less amazing because now you're watching it at home, you're going to see a kind of thin story? It may not really have the same impact. It may not be, it's like watching the Texas Giant on VR versus actually going to Six Flags. I think a lot of the conclusions in this film were easy to draw out. I mean, come on, we got one brother who seems to have a lot less screen time than the other. I wonder how long he's going to stick around. And we're doing things here to also set up more sequels in the process. Oh, hey, well, we're going to fight to the death, except leave it for next time. Now, I have to question, am I going to be alive when this story's finished being told? It seems like James Cameron's not hedging his bets. Hey, I may not be around to direct these next ones, so just in case, maybe I'll pawn that off to somebody else to finish the story. I don't think that Avatar: The Way of Water is better than the original. I wasn't that high up on the original. I felt like it didn't quite live up to its hype. The visual effects are pretty much light years better, though. Everything looks, you know, with some exceptions, probably due to that motion variable frame rate stuff, as realistic as one could possibly expect. But the story seems rather paper thin or contrived. I give Avatar: The Way of Water 2.5 out of 4 stars.
You just watched a video from my son. He's about 40 and lives in my basement, ladies. So subscribe her and notify the bell for ringing.
Okay, I said what you wanted me to say. Now do the goddamn dishes.